Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donald Nyarota. I will not major on the minor, which is the details of who I am and what I do, because Sir Richard Gobe has sufficiently done that in the chat. And I'll just delve in and look at the topic today, which is placing two key sectors together. And these are diverse sectors. As you can see that we have the media and the extractive sector. And as a trained journalist, as it is, you notice that I'll begin this submission by defining key terms, and particularly from the media point of view, and also defining the mining or the extractive industry, with a focus also on the oil and gas, which are key emergent sectors within the African context. So as I would then go on with the presentation, I'll also look at the key players that are involved in the mining value chain, and also then look at the key structures in terms of how the mining processes and the extraction processes in oil and gas are done. And in this, I will be presenting also concurrently opportunities for oversight and opportunities for intervention. Where are the gaps? Where are the likelihoods of commissions or violations by companies, business or human rights violations? So you will see that this is going to be a brain teaser, because of course, like I said, this is a diverse these are two diverse sectors, which the time that we have may not suffice to get into intricate details. But be that as it may, after this audio, I'm going to send the next voice note, and of course some brief explanations. I will not just delve into definition of terms in terms of saying what is the media, because I understand we already know and appreciate that the media is there to play an integral part in terms of democratic governance. And the fact that the media is seen as the fourth estate, placed after the judiciary, the legislature and the executive, because it provides checks and balances to those that are vested with powers to hold public office, shows that it is indeed a sector that we are conversant in, and we appreciate the role that it plays. And of course, to say that a free and objective skilled media is an essential component of any democratic society. On one hand, it provides information which the polity requires to make responsible and informed decisions. And on the other hand, it performs that watchdog role, or the checking function, which ensures that elected officials, public holders, public office holders, or those that have oaths of office fulfill their responsibilities and carry out their obligations, and indeed ensure that citizens enjoy rights that are enshrined within the laws. And the case of Zimbabwe in terms of the media is really a sad scenario, where we have a legacy of repressive media legislation, of course, particularly the infamous IPA, the draconian piece of legislation which did not allow for that access to information, ironically. But this also shows that the state is a key player in terms of regulation of the media and how the media fulfills its roles. And there's been of course, debates around reforms in terms of strengthening the public service function of the media, looking at broadcasting and the need to develop a participation in alternative media and citizen journalism, so that we create a composite mass media system which empowers and indeed informs all members of society and enhances our democratic values. These are key facets that need to be looked at. Also looking at the issues of media pluralism and the three media tier, where we would have the public media, the private media, and the community media. These are issues of reforms that need to be looked at from the Zimbabwean side. And unfortunately, we are at a time that the media is also under assault, as some of the reforms that are being undertaken could actually ebb away the gains that had been set by the constitutional rights that are provided by the amendment bill of 2013. I will also now look into the mining sector in the next voice note. Now I would just want to briefly then delve into the mining sector or the extractive sector, which in this case I will look at the two distinct sectors, which is mining of minerals, and then oil and gas is another sector that has become a sector of contemporary relevance in Zimbabwe, given the fact that there has been work that is already starting around Muzarabani in exploration of those resources. And of course, mining is the extraction of minerals, ores, then that are processed for financial and of course economic reasons. And this sector is a sector that, despite the great wealth and natural resources that we have in Africa, the discovery of high value resources can also bring about unwanted political and social challenges. And it's been seen as one of the paradoxical nature of resource endowment, where we have the resource case, which just tries to describe the failure of many resource-rich countries in terms of extracting benefit fully from their mineral or oil wealth. And these sectors have got distinct differences in that while the mining sector has got four areas in terms of its mining value chain, the oil and gas has got three distinct sectors. The oil and gas is divided into three sections, which is the upstream, midstream, and downstream production. And these phases are important to understand in terms of the media, the CSOs, communities, so that we can also then provide the watchdog. We can also set agendas and predict developments before they are actually actioned. And by upstream production, this consists of locating crude oil or gas out of the ground, and this is one of the most capital expensive phases of production. It has got high costs upfront. So this is one of the most lucrative part of that value chain, which needs constant and monitoring to see who is getting what tender, what opportunities are there for local content development, which is really the support of other line or downstream industries within the locality, so that communities can also benefit. We also then have the midstream, where this is now the process between upstream, where there's a storage and transportation of that oil and natural gas via pipelines that can then be shipped and cooled, made into gases, liquid petroleum gases or liquefied natural gases. Then they can then be shipped back into their places where they would want to be sold. Then the downstream would then look at the how the minerals then are also then transformed from raw materials into the refining processes, separating that mineral from impurities, so that the unwanted substances can then be removed. So for gas, this process also focuses on concentration of methane so that it can be used, and these facilities then sell off these materials as fertilizers, fuel, jet, or other products that are made from these endowments from oil. Because of the length of this voice note, I will not go into mining. I will cover it in the next note. So whereas the oil and gas has got three distinct phases, the mining value chain has got four particular phases, which are exploration, development, and production, and then of course the closure. And these are four phases are also important, because from exploration, the company then quantifies the mineral deposit, whether they can be potentially extraction projects which are likely to be successful, and these are classified as proven resources or measured resources where the company is highly confident. Then from that, we can then go to the development phase, where this is the extraction process, and it begins with the company then doing a feasibility study and investigating what type of mining or mining model, whether it is a surface or deep or open cast, that can be engaged in, so that they also look at the potential social and environment cost. This is where also the key players like the environmental arms of the state come in to ensure compliance. Then, of course, there's also the production. Once the mineral is deposited, deemed commercially viable, then there's appropriate contracts that are signed by government. And this cycle now goes on for even up to 100 years. And it then feeds into the next cycle, which is closure. And that closure cycle is where the company then closes off and make sure that the area is safe, including getting rid of waste and following the steps that they said they would within the environmental impact assessment. And this impact assessment then shows that there is rehabilitation or closure after the mine, but this is in perpetuity, whereas the mineral that has been extracted is now finite. It is no longer commercially viable. So it means that before production ends, there has to be an active monitoring system, and the media needs to play its oversight role to ensure that the company is keeping up with the pace of the environmental impact assessment, and ensuring that the communities do not carry the burden of that environmental cost, because more often than not, communities then get that disproportionate burden when the mining has been closed. We have seen the emergence of ghost towns where mining has ended, and this is indeed an issue of concern, that that value chain cannot be monitored at the closure. During production, as the mining companies are now selling, as they are making revenue, as the incomes are coming in, we need to ensure that we have a robust system to ensure that they comply to the impact assessments that they would have submitted to government. So having looked at the government in the last voice note, it then brings other key players like state-owned enterprises, which are mostly in the oil sector. You see that oil sectors are mostly by owned or controlled by national owned companies like the National Oil Company of Zimbabwe. And of course, we also have regulators. We also have the international bodies that set international standards for business and human rights. We also have private companies of different size, from small to medium. We also now have the emergence of a key sector in terms of livelihood for us in Africa, but is also now become an important key player in terms of the artisanal small-scale mining sector. And these key players, in terms of their interests, which are dissecting and intersecting, they present impacts, and these impacts then present a gap where the media can come in to provide that monitoring role, to set an agenda, to be a mirror reflecting the state of affairs, and of course to respect the principles of truthfulness, objectiveness, and being able to provide accurate information. Because there is a heightened risk of conflict whenever there's oil and gas production. And this can be for several reasons, including where communities feel like that they are not benefiting, like the case of Mozambique, and where they are not involved in the governance decisions. And of course, being a communications advisor for green governance, these are also the areas that we are also trying to advocate, to say communities should be included, they should participate in that governance cycle, because the social and environmental problems affect them. And without proper management and of course legal frameworks, that resource extraction causes devastating environmental impacts. Mining is dangerous to the environment, and that needs to be looked at, to say, how do communities get redressed? How are they protected from the economic hazards that may come long after the mines have closed? And of course, you then place this, juxtaposing it to the inefficient government spending and borrowing from our states, nations, another key player, like I said, and revenues from oil and gas. They are not predictable because of the commodity price and fluctuations in production, and of course changes in the markets. So if countries do not plan for this volatility, they end up having overborrowed or overspent. And sometimes we are now having resource-backed loans that have emerged with the geopolitical rise of China as a major international player in terms of development financing, providing loans and grants, and also foreign direct investments through its complex state-owned equity and ownership of its financial institutions. And this also then brings in how the Chinese or Sino investment in Africa has been really coming through a conduit of empowered elites and weakened public institutions where there's corruption. And this rent-seeking behavior is further weakening our public institutions, and elites are taking advantage. And it is the role of the media now to come in and doubt everything and investigate actively in collaboration with CSOs, which may have the necessary data and information, and of course the communities that feel the impact, to build that citizen agency for reform and address, so that we can get optimum benefits from the mining sector. So of course it brings rise to the question of unfair competition and conflict of interest. But also when you then look at the sectors, like I said, of oil, because of their nature in terms of that high risk conscious, governments are expected to become key players in ensuring that that distribution of that resource is monitored and reaches everyone. Whereas also that active participation of government also may bring politically exposed persons. And these politically exposed persons then, of course, lead to cases of corruption. In Zimbabwe, we know that we are losing at least 100 million every month from gold. And these are illicit financial flows that are fueled by politically exposed person, which are also then fueling the disorder, the emergence of violence, the, exploitative extractivism, where we have got, those people with livelihood prospectors are then manipulated by those that are close to those in power, and then perpetuate that status quo where communities still do not benefit. So it is a case of conflict of interest, but it may be difficult to say that government should not have business in business when it comes to oil. But in terms of minerals and the mining sector, that can be done, and government can simply be a regulator and monitor and collect revenue through royalties, taxes, or other avenues of collecting money. So the media is over the years been purposefully disempowered by the legislative framework, and government ownership in that media shows that there is that awareness that he who detects the tune is the one that is paying the piper. And those ownership patterns are important in terms of understanding the role that the media plays. And of course, the lack of access to information by private media then works against the roles that the media is supposed to serve in terms of monitoring and being that watchdog. And that space is always challenged, challenge the space, and the media also has to fight and extend its work. Sorry for the background sound, the challenges of working from home. Of course, I'll indulge was to say that the communities benefiting from the extractive industries isolated situations, because like I said, it's a capital intensive industry where there's a lot of investment, upfront investment, and these investments are usually by international companies that have got profit on their minds in terms of their investments, and usually communities are left to bear that burden once the mining cycle is done. And of course, this has built the agency around the CSO work to say that communities need to benefit. But on the flip side, we have also seen communities, because of the livelihood impacts and pressures in resource-rich countries, now delving and getting into artisanal mining. And this sector is also surprisingly experienced the exponential growth because of its flexibility. So communities, while they have not really benefited in terms of state structures of local content development, and of course the issue that corporate social responsibility, it is just that, but not an obligation. Whereas companies could be given quotas or development quotas to say, like for Marange Diamonds case, we still have, bad, rugged roads in that area where there are diamonds. If the diamond mining companies would be given a quota to develop infrastructure, that would also ensure that the communities then reap benefits. But of course, be that as it may, the fight against capitalism is the one that also ensures that profits are always concentrated in the hands of the investors, and of course the communities which may bear the impacts are then left with those social and environmental costs. And in conclusion, I would just want to give a few recommendations to say that the media should now be abreast to the digital transformation, and of course the avalanche of data and information proliferation through the coming in of the web, and of course the technological advancement in the mining sector, which means that there is that growing need to monitor, because the developments may fly by night, and to use key resources in terms of accessing that public energy data, and ensuring that the voices of the communities are also captured. Wherever communities are impacted, we can never leave out the voices of the communities. And this is also a call to collaboration, which the Manicaland chapter of the Media Community Alliance Trust, a trust that was set by journalists to ensure that there is that platform that bridges the communities, those that represent them, and of course investors, to ensure that we have that interplay between communities and their public office holders. We need to be more conversant in the global developments. We need to be more conversant in terms of understanding what are key issues and key terms, understanding what is the disease, understanding the resource case, so that whenever we invest in terms of development of content, we are able to express what beneficial ownership is, who is the direct owner, and why disclosure of that is important. What is a cadastre? To understand the issues and facets of competitive tendering, the licensing, the taxation regime, looking also at the global discussions around a global tax, to ensure that we understand and we present the right information to the people, and ensuring that we unmask the politically exposed persons which are benefiting from the mining sector at the expense of the communities. I will now invite time for questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for indulging me. It has been a privilege to be presenting to you my opinion, indeed, on the nexus between the media and the extractive sector, oil, mining, and gas. I thank you.